let's talk at least about Square and a couple of things out there. One thing, I'd seen they were dabbling in this, and it was probably going to become something they would pursue. They're now letting customers pay in installments. They've essentially introduced a new payment option for their small business partners in order to let customers pay for larger purchases in monthly installments. And I think larger purchases, I believe the number qualifies anywhere from $250 to, I believe, $10,000. It's not like just anybody can do it whenever they want. You have to actually be able to qualify for it. But it does sound like yet another option Square is offering its merchant partners. It sounds like they're giving them that option in order to be able to really meet their customers' demands wherever and however they need.
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of have mixed feelings about this move. For one, it's a long-awaited first step into consumer lending for Square, which when we were talking about the Square Cash App, we mentioned is one of their big long-tailed opportunities to eventually monetize that base with loans. On the other hand, what they're doing is essentially what most store credit cards do with their 0% financing offers. To be clear, Square's isn't always zero. It says theirs range from 0 to 24% APR depending on the credit profile of the borrowers. But my point is that with store credit cards, those are some of the highest default rates in the credit card industry. If you look at, say, Synchrony Bank, which is a big issuer of store credit cards, their default rate is about twice what Amex's is. So this adds a big element of credit risk to Square, which is, I think, why you saw a little bit of a negative reaction in the stock after they announced this. But in the long run, I think this is really good for the business. It adds an element of risk, but it's definitely welcome news to people like me who've wanted to see them kind of dip their toes into the consumer lending space.
Yeah, as a shareholder, I see what you're saying there. I mean, I saw the news and I wasn't quite sure how to feel about it at first. I feel like it does add that element of risk that so many companies before have perhaps not executed as well on. But I think also the encouraging part is, at least with Square, most everything they do is built on the data that they get from their hardware and software systems that their merchants use. So assuming that they are doing what they say they're doing and using this data to make these decisions, perhaps that is going to prove to be a bet that that pays off down the road. Certainly, it's a very long-term oriented type of bet there. Now, we also have seen today Square shares are in the tank, and that is because of a little news we saw earlier that frankly, I don't think is all that big of a deal. What do you think?
Yeah, what happened was CEO Jack Dorsey exercised some options at the end of the day Friday and sold about 103,000 shares of Square. And he got between $95 and $98, I want to say, for his shares. So generally when a CEO starts unloading shares, it's a negative. But the company put out a press release. It's very important to remember this was a pre-planned sale. They stressed that it does not reflect how Dorsey feels about the company or the stock's valuation or anything to that effect. So generally when this happens, we consider this a buying opportunity. It's generally in the long term, in the long context of things, this is a non-event. So it's down about 11% today. We were just talking before this that if we were allowed to buy some today, we might. So don't panic and sell. That's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah, that is. I feel like that old Peter Lynch saying, there are a million reasons to sell and really only one reason to buy, right? And I mean, I never hold selling against anyone because that's part of compensation, right? And as a planned sale, it matters even less. And so yeah, I've always found that insiders selling to be much more of a non-event than I think a lot of the financial headlines would have you believe. And yeah, I mean, geez, if we didn't have these trading restrictions, I certainly would be thinking very, very long and hard about adding to my position. And I still may. Hey, you never know. Maybe I'll shut up about Square for the rest of the week here so I can have at least the choice, right?